Today we're going to focus on a book sleeve order that I have to make and ship out. She ordered 6 book sleeves. Both of the fabrics that she did order I'm completely out of now, so currently on my website I do not have any more book sleeves. Here is the fabric. I have this gorgeous like blue orange floral fabric, and for the tie straps I use this kind of orangey silky color. And then for the other book sleeves we have this gorgeous blue floral pattern, and then for the tie straps we have this blue gray color. For the inside of the book sleeves I just use a neutral muslin fabric. So I believe we have 4 orders of one fabric and 2 orders of the other. So let's get sewing and I will take you step by step on how I make my book sleeves. For your book sleeve, you're going to want to cut 2 pieces of lining fabric. I just use a muslin, 2 pieces of your outer fabric, 2 pieces of batting, and 2 sleeve straps. Now we're going to iron them on our batting material. That way the fabric will stick to the batting. I highly recommend this. I will link this in the description below. Basically, you just take the wrong side of the fabric, you lay it down on top of this batting, and you iron on top of it. Batting will stick to your outer fabric so it doesn't come off, and it makes it way easier to quilt your lines if you choose to quilt your book sleeve. While I'm waiting for my iron to heat up, I also grabbed my Hera marker so that after I iron, I can start making my marks in the fabric to then take it to the machine and quilt. I recommend getting very lightweight fabric or like a pressing fabric to put over this. On the batting, there are little grippies, and if you get it on your iron, it does make it difficult to get off. You want to make sure you really press on it too. I like to just cut around it, just leaving a little bit of extra batting so that when I do quilt, if the fabric shifts a little bit, there will be extra batting. It's up to you if you want to do that, but that's just what I like doing. Now we're going to use our Hera marker to quilt. I just like starting from either of the corners. Just make sure it's right down the middle, on the curved side here, and just really press along the edge of your ruler, and you'll see that you'll get a line in your fabric. You probably won't be able to see it on camera. Once I'm done doing all the markings, I'll try to get a better angle. And I just use my ruler width. This is going to be 2 inches. Our quilting is now done. Now you can just choose what thread you want on top. I like to coordinate with the fabric colors, so I'm going to do like a dark blue, sew a straight line on those markings, and create the quilting pattern. I'm just going to go over the settings that I use. With my presser foot, there's this little notch. That notch helps me look at my quilting lines and to stay straight. I just want to make sure my needle is in the center. I'm going to choose this 103 setting. That moved my needle over to the center, and then it lines up with that notch. So for instance, you can see if I line up the quilting line, I'll be able to follow that and just feed it through. Right after quilting, you can see these beautiful lines, and it just adds so much to your book sleeve. But of course, if you don't want to quilt your book sleeve, you don't have to. You can skip this step. The next step that I do is I attach my label down at the bottom here, so I will sew that on next. I kind of find where the quilting crosses and then use that as my middle ground. Once I have my label on, now is the time I can go and cut these edges and create 2 outer pieces of fabric and just kind of clean up the thread a little bit. You'll end up with 2 outer pieces of fabric like this. For the straps, they're going to measure 4 inches by 15 inches. You need 2 of them, so I just like folding my fabric and just measuring out 4 inches by 15, cutting it, and then you'll end up with 2 straps. I also like to cut at an angle. We won't do this until after we sew. With right sides together, fold in half, iron along that crease. When I say right sides together, that means it's your facing fabric, the fabric that has either the design or the more shiny side. This is the right side up, and you're just gonna fold this in half. This one's kind of hard to tell because it is a sheer kind of shiny fabric. The wrong side is kind of more dull. We're gonna sew down this, and then we're gonna flip it inside out so that the right side of the fabric is on the outside. Probably just like 1/8 of an inch, we're gonna sew down one side all the way down the other, and we're gonna leave this bottom open. I just went ahead and sewed the 45-degree angle. We can just cut this off here. We are going to turn this inside out, start at the bottom of the fabric and kind of open it up, and then push your thumb through. And then pull it out on the other side. A dull pair of scissors so as not to cut your fabric, and I just kind of push that point out. And then iron that down so that that stays nice and flat. Lint rollers are the best for collecting those little tiny pesky threads. Highly recommend getting a lint roller. Now it's time to sandwich everything together and start sewing. First thing you're going to do is you're going to take one piece of your outer fabric, one strap, and one lining piece, starting with your outer fabric. And remember, the finished edge is the edge that you want on the outside of your book sleeve. So we're going to lay the open unsewn edge right in the middle, and then you're going to take your lining fabric, and mine doesn't matter which side it is because it's the same on both sides. If you did have a lining fabric that has some sort of design and nothing on the outside, and you want the design on the inside of your book sleeve, you want to make sure that the design part is down, right sides together with your book sleeve, so that when you sew this line right here, and you can always test before you sew, this is a trick I learned in school. Once you sew that line, you can flip this out, and then this is what the inside of the book sleeve would look like. So if you have fabric that has a design, make sure that this is facing upwards, because that's going to be the inside of your book sleeve. That's going to be a rough look at what the beginning of your book sleeve is going to look like. So we're going to sew a line 1/4 inch down this side. Another trick real quick too, just to make sure that this strap is in the center, we can fold our book sleeve here, pinch the middle, and create a little line. This is a washable marker, by the way. I know you've seen me use this throughout the video. This washes off with water and does not leave a mark. Same thing with the strap here. You're going to fold it in half, pinch the middle, make a little mark, and then that way you know exactly, if you line your marks up, that is exactly the middle. You're just gonna line up those edges. Voila! So I'm just gonna get my other sleeve ready. Also, another thing to be aware of, if you have a fabric that has a designated up or a designated down, so like let's say it was arrows, you wanna make sure that both your fabrics are pointing the same direction. Mine is floral, so it really doesn't matter if I had it one way or the other, but that's just something to be aware of, just so that when you have your finished book sleeve done, the fabric on both the back side and the front side is the same. And again, we're going to sew just one line down this edge, 1/4 inch. Once you have your sleeves sewn, we're going to press these open. Flipping it around, you're going to take the batting side, and you're also going to press the seam down towards the batting, and you're going to press that with your iron. We're going to top stitch the lining piece to this outer sleeve. Ironing this seam down will help make it flat. You're going to take your lining, you're just going to give it another really good press so that that lining stays down flat and doesn't come out on the other side. I also like to flip it around and kind of just get the lining a really nice iron before we sandwich that together. Top stitch this 1/8 inch from top to bottom on both sides of your sleeves. And now we're starting to see the final book sleeve come together. The next step is sandwiching your book sleeves and sewing them together. Start with one side here. We're gonna take right sides together and we're gonna lay them on top of each other. Both sleeves together, right sides together, outer fabrics together, lining sides together. You wanna make sure that your sleeves are not on the outside, that they're tucked on the inside, because now we are going to sew starting from here all the way until here, and we're going to leave about 4 to 5 inches open so that we can turn our book sleeve inside out. I like to just run a couple stitches right here. Look to make sure that these edges are lined up, and I do that on both sides. Once I know that they are lined up, then I go ahead and I finish the outside sewing line. Before you turn your book sleeve inside out, let's trim all the corners so that it's less bulky when we do so. Now we can turn it inside out. Push those corners out. And then with all your projects, you should always give it a good press. So I'm gonna heat up my iron here and we're just gonna iron this down really well. While we're waiting for that iron to get hot, we can finish the lining portion of our project. And then you're gonna just sew right on the edge here, about 1/8 of an inch to close that up. Once you do that, you can shove your lining back into your book sleeve and you are good to go. I've got my book in there. I'm just gonna do a quick little bow. If you guys have any questions on the process of this book sleeve, anything that I may have missed, just leave me a comment and I'll be happy to help you. It's a fairly simple tutorial, but if I did miss anything or something doesn't make sense, just reach out. But that is the final book sleeve.